everybody, Backyard Bullion here. Welcome again to my humble yet still very messy silver pouring bench. I know it's a mess, I'm sorry for that, you'll have to excuse it. I'm just a bit too busy with silver pouring at the moment to be able to take everything off and clean it up. Now today I have something very special to share with you guys. Last weekend I gave you a sneak peek at the globes which I'm making, the hand poured silver globes, and this is the mould that we've used. I've given a few sneak peeks of it over the last couple of weeks, but today I wanted to show some of the production of these moulds, to share with you guys what I've been doing to make them. And we have here the two-part mould which I've been using. So as I said, I've given you a few sneak peeks of this before, but basically here it is in a little bit more detail. You can see hopefully some of the etching inside it for the continents. This mould, by the way, was made by a company called GNG Machine Works. I've used them many times before. Link down in the description below to his website. Really great mould maker. I would highly recommend him for anybody who's looking to get a custom built mould. Now this is a little bit of a tricky mould to pour. It's a two-part graphite mould, and I use a two-part graphite mould rather than doing sandcasting for a couple of reasons. One, I'm useless at sandcasting. I've tried it a number of times and I just can't get it right. Two, I don't actually have a kind of globe that I could use for sandcasting. Maybe I could find one, but I didn't sort of look anywhere and see one with all the detail that I liked, so I had this made instead. And two, I can pour all of these very quickly. You know, I can make sort of 3 or 4 in a day, which is actually really handy rather than having to faff around with the sand. I mean, all credit to you guys out there who do sandcasting. I just don't have the patience or the skill to do it, so graphite is the way for me to go. Now this is a little bit of a tricky one to pour, and I have to get them as hot as possible so that the silver gets all the way down to the bottom of the mould. And to that end I have 2 blowtorches. I don't have a separate kiln which I could pop these in and get them red hot. That would be ideal, but at the moment it seems to be working with these 2 blowtorches. Get them as hot as possible, and then hopefully the silver will pour through. So once they're hot as possible, we put them together like this, and then we get some heat on the spout so that that's nice and hot as well. And then it's just about confidence and skill pouring the silver in, and you'll see as I go what happens. Now I do have a couple of these which didn't work out, and the silver kind of solidified in the spout before it got down there, and I'll show you those in the next part of this video. So I'm going to show you kind of the end-to-end process of making some of these. So I'm going to pour a couple on camera now so you can see a little bit more about how that works, and then we'll move over and I'll show you how I cut off the spur, and then also how I antique them to make them look really, really good. So there we go. I hope you enjoy. Sit back, relax. The silver is coming up to temperature. All I have to do now is get these moulds nice and hot. Okay guys, so the mould is up to temperature, so now we just put it together, working with quite thick gloves by the way, so they will smoke if you hold it too long on there. And we get just the right angle there like that, so that it's nice and tight. And then I like to put another mould just at the back there, just to push it together, because there is a little bit of a seam on these, so if we can get it as tight as possible, then that is the best. So that is about as good as it's going to get. The next thing we need, of course, is the silver. Now, the key here is confidence, because it's quite a small hole. You've got to try and aim it correctly to get it in there. If you hesitate at all on this pour, it will not go through that hole and fill up the mould. So it's all about confidence. So here we go. Wish me luck. Okay, so that should have filled the mould, or we can hope it has anyway. We'll soon find out, because we're about to open it up and see. Now this is actually a really interesting part, because I like it when I see the mould in half with the silver. Now this will smoke quite a lot with the gloves, and there we go. So how cool is that? You get the spur sticking up with the planet Earth there as well, which is very cool indeed. Now the next trick is getting the other half out of here, and as you can see I kind of a little bit over poured the spur so that I've got something to grab onto with these tongs, and then in theory it should just come out like that. So that's what it looks like when it comes fresh out of the mould. As you can see, it looks pretty good. I always do a double check and just make sure that there's no like huge crevices or if it's not quite filled the mould, but this one looks pretty perfect. So now we're going to quench it, and then I'm going to pour another one. Okay, welcome back. Here is the second globe that we're going to be making. So you can see my rudimentary setup here. I've got a block of wood which I balance the blowtorches on. It's just the way I've always worked. Creature of habit. Probably will be the way I always work as well. But anyway, That's just the way it is. So there is the mould all together, and you can see just how easy it is for that. I mean, with sand casting, I would have to sit there and recast the sand every single time, and it takes a lot of time. I really do have so much respect for you guys out there who do sand casting. But anyway, graphite, definitely the way forward for me. So here we go, second one, wish me luck. There we go, hopefully that has filled the mould. I think it has, felt like it did anyway. Yes it has, so there we go. Now you can see there, this is an interesting thing that I have to deal with as well. You've got a little bit of the seam coming up there, that's because it wasn't quite tight enough. Now that's always going to happen, I think, with graphite, especially with graphite. It's never going to be 100% flush, and also it's good to have it not 100% flush, because when you pour the silver in there, there needs to be an escape mechanism for the air, and if there isn't, then it's not going to be able to fill up the mould properly. So that's one thing that we sort of ummed and ahed about, whether or not we'd have a separate sort of air channel to actually contend with that, or whether we'd just make do with the seam. And it actually works out really well with the seam. I can trim that sort of seam off there, so that's not a big problem. And I'll show you how I do that in the second part of this video. So yeah, I'm going to crack on and pour a few more. I've got, I think, 4 more to make after these two. Just had a look in my box, and I've got 18 out of the 25 that I want to make already done. So pour a couple more, and I'll see you over at my kind of workstation, I suppose, the kitchen table, where I will take off the spurs and show you some of the rest of the process. Okay guys, so the next task is to tidy up the globe and take the spur off. So we've got here on this particular one, this is the second one I poured, it's got the kind of seam leakage, I suppose you could call it, the little bits coming out there, and I've got this just pair of nail clippers which actually works incredibly well for just snipping off that little bit of a spur. I don't think that's classed as a spur actually. It clips off the stuff that's seeped out through the seams, so that works a treat. Top tip for any of you out there, and there's also just a tiny little bit on the North Pole here as well, so we're going to snip that bit off there. And of course we'll tidy it all up 100% once we've got the spur off, but that's as good as it gets for now. Now you can see here I've got on the table a little bit of foam and a piece of paper. That's because I want to collect the silver that comes out as I'm sawing it off with this little hacksaw. So that's the job here now, to saw this off. The spur had to be relatively thick just to make sure the silver got through it okay, but you know, it is what it is. So I have hand sawed off all of these globes spurs, and I've just got this tiny little hacksaw from Amazon, so of all places. Now it is just a little bit of a labour of love basically. You have to sit here and just kind of saw through it. A brand new hacksaw blade works a lot better than a dull hacksaw blade. This one's had about 5 globes through this particular blade, so it's not as sharp as it was, but you can still see that it takes out the silver pretty well, and that's one of the advantages of working with 909 silver, is that it is very malleable, so even with a dull hacksaw blade you can get through it as well. Now you'll notice I'm only sawing in one direction, and that's just because of the teeth on the hacksaw. It makes it really difficult. As you can see, it kind of gets stuck quite easily, whereas if you're going in just one direction, it's quite smooth. I'm also rotating the globe as I go to try and get an even kind of cut around the spur, and you'll see why that is at the end, but basically it's partly to make it a little bit easier for myself, because I don't have to cut through the entire spur. So yeah, it is a little bit of a labour of love. I suppose one could have designed these with a little bit of a thinner spur, but when I was putting together the design with G&G Machine Works, I wasn't sure, because I've never done any kind of spur and 2-part mould pouring before. I really wasn't sure whether the silver would get through, so we made what I actually thought was maybe even a little bit too small a hole in the first instance. However, it did work really well. I have had a couple of pieces where the silver didn't make it all the way through the sort of spur hole, and it didn't quite work. In fact, I've got one of those here to show you guys. Let's just give my fingers a quick break from that, because it's quite taxing on the fingers. Here's the one that didn't quite work. So you can see here we've got it's almost like a pyramid hitting the earth, and it's causing a huge explosion. I think it looks really cool. Here, we'll show you that a little bit closer. But you know, it is obviously not perfect for what I want to do here, so eventually it'll just go back in the melting pot. But you can see there basically the spur solidified and the silver wasn't able to fill up the cavity in the mould. So yeah, hopefully, well, I mean, I say hopefully, I've now poured all 25 of these. These were the last ones I poured. So now we've just got to take the spur off and make sure that it's reached the minimum weight standard, because there have been a few that come out a little bit lower than the 5.4 ounces, which I am aiming for. So basically 168 grams as a minimum. And I think that's partly because maybe when you pour the silver into the mould like that, there may well be very small air pockets within the mould, or sorry, within the actual silver as it cools, which is very interesting, the sort of physics of it. So, you know, I try to get the silver as hot as possible, the moulds as hot as possible, so that the silver has time to free flow down into the mould and fill up the cavity, hopefully 100%. But all of these globes have a minimum of 5.4 ounces, and if this one, once I've sawn off the spur, if it doesn't reach that minimum weight, it will be going back in the melting pot, and I've got to pour another one. So basically now the spur is almost through. There's just a tiny little bit left over, and I can just go pop. It's almost like a bit of a champagne cork almost. It kind of, you probably didn't hear it, but there's a little clunk as it comes off, which is obviously really cool. So there we go, that is the globe and the spur off. So the spur obviously can go straight back in the melting pot. We've recovered here probably about, I think from memory, it's something like 1/4 of a gram. So it's not a lot, I know, but it all adds up. It's about 10p's worth of silver in there, so obviously well worth doing. So then the last thing to do is just to weigh it and make sure that it has hit that magic 5.4 ounces. I think this one has, it feels like it, I don't know though, I haven't weighed it yet, so here we go. 169.72, so that is obviously well above the 5.4 ounce, in fact it's probably about 5.45, but 5.4 is the minimum, so that's what they're all going to be stamped with. So job done, very good. Next thing to do is to tidy up the bottom, the south pole here. We're going to sand that up a little bit to make it a little bit smoother. There's a little bit of a ragged edge on there. But otherwise, the next thing to do after this is the antiquing process. So hang fire and I'll be back with all of my antiquing equipment. Okay, so the antiquing stage is a fairly simple process by which we're going to blacken this planet Earth using a solution called liver of sulfur. This gives a patina, as it's called, on the silver. Basically, it speeds up the aging process. Now, if you're going to use this stuff, I'd highly recommend that you do so, first of all, using gloves like I am here, but also in a well-ventilated room, because it pongs of rotten eggs, which is obviously not a very nice thing. Now, what you need to do is have some hot water in here. This is probably about 50 or 60 degree water. That's about as much as my fingers can take in the glove. And then basically all you're going to do is you're going to plop your silver in there. I've taken the liberty of stamping this one up already. This is number 22. And normally I would wait until after I've had the hallmarks put on them by the Edinburgh Assay Office, but I'm going to put this in now just to show you the process. So basically you just pop it in. And then the antiquing will start pretty much straight away as soon as you've got it in contact with that liver of sulfur solution. I always just like to make sure that it's kind of either rolling around if it's the globe or if it's another type of piece, just to put it in and turn it over straight away so that the solution definitely hits all parts of it. And you can see the reaction starts quite quickly. It's already started to turn. It depends on how strong your solution is. I put quite a bit of liver of sulfur in here because I'm about to go and antique a bunch of other pieces after I've done this as well. But you know, the stronger the solution, the quicker it is, and also the thicker the patina is going to be if you leave it in for a longer period of time. And just as a tip and a hint, if you are going to patina things and leave them in for a very long time, for a really thick patina, it will take a lot of elbow grease to get rid of that patina, or to get rid of it on the highlighted areas if you are going to leave it for a long time. So be careful of that, because I've had a few pieces ruined where I just can't get it, I just can't get the patina off, which is amazing really how thick it is. So once basically it has all gone like this, you can see some of the really nice rainbow colours coming out of here as well. Also, by the way, the temperature of the water really helps. So if you do this in cold water, it'll take a lot longer. So hot water is definitely needed to make it go a nice, quick, dark colour. So the darker obviously is nice. I like the colours that come out on this, but we're after that kind of as dark as possible without being too thick a patina. This I would say is quite a light patina, so it's going to come off quite easily with the polishing cloth in a moment. But basically once you've got it to the level that you so wish, you're basically just going to take some bicarb of soda, which is very easily done, or got from supermarkets. You're going to put that in some cold water, and what the bicarb of soda is going to do is neutralize the reaction between the silver and the liver of sulfur. So once you've got it, there we go, it's starting to turn a really nice deep dark blue now. That will come out quite easily but still leave a nice colour on all of the highlighted areas. You then just pop it into the bicarb of soda solution. Now this is obviously going to help neutralize the reaction and to a certain extent stop the reaction. However, because you've taken some of the liver of sulfur that's already on the object when you put it in here, this water will actually continue reacting with the silver. So basically you're just doing this to kind of get the majority of the liver of sulfur off, and then what I do is I'll take this over and give it a good old clean with some hot soapy water. That will ensure that all of the liver of sulfur has come off it. And then once that's happened, the next step is to polish it. So I'll see you back in a moment, and we can polish this up to make it look nice and shiny again. So the last part of the process is polishing it up. So we have before, middle and after. This is what we're after, the effect of having all of the continents nicely outlined instead of the whole thing looking black and apocalyptic. So what we need to do is basically just polish it. I have silver polish here. This is the silver polish I use. Other brands are available, but I find this one to be very useful, very good. It comes in a foam form like this, and you just rub it onto your yellow duster cloth, and then off you go. And it's basically a simple case of just finding the right bits on the globe that you haven't done yet and polishing them off. And it is a pain polishing a globe, let me tell you, because if you're doing a flat piece like a bar, then you can just do the one surface. You know you're going to cover pretty much the whole surface, whereas with a sphere, as you can see here, I've kind of done little bits of it. You have to do the whole 360-degree plane in 3 dimensions as well, so it can take quite a little bit of time to get this kind of done perfectly. Make sure you hit every spot, but as you can see, it comes off quite easily. This was a light patina, and you can see it really highlights like the deep parts, the lettering, which is obviously the whole desired effect. You want to have the sunken bits really highlighted and the raised bits nice and shiny and silvery. But yeah, this was a light patina. If it was a really heavy, dark patina, it can sometimes take a lot of time, energy, and elbow grease, and you really do have to kind of put in a lot of effort to get the patina off, and I've done that a few times on some of my pieces, and it's just a real pain. So this is a kind of happy medium. Sometimes it's not quite dark enough, and it will not take on a lot of the slightly less than deep ridged areas, but this seems to be just about perfect, really. So as I said, it's just about finding each spot that you haven't quite managed to do yet. If anybody knows a better method for doing this other than picking it up, because it's nice to have it against a hard surface like this table to really kind of polish in and get that effect happening. So I think we're nearly there though. I think that's pretty much it. So let's just pick it up and rub it through the duster like this, just to try and get the last remnants out. And there we have it. Left a nice bit of silver polish on my table, but that'll clean off no doubt. Maybe the few little spots here and there. There's one in Asia. Let's just get rid of that. So yeah, there we have it. That is how you antique the globe. I'll need to do a little bit more polishing on that. There's still areas of the Pacific Ocean which need touching up, but that is essentially it. So I hope you enjoyed having or tagging along today to watch me make some of these globes. They're a real fun thing to pour. They are a bit of a challenge, but I never shy away from a challenge. If you like this video and if you like these globes, please do put a thumbs up and share this around on your social media. And as I mentioned yesterday in the video I put out, these are now available in pre-order. So please make sure, if you're interested in them, that you head on over to my website, backyardbullion.com, and you can buy these in pre-order now. If you would like to get the best price possible, then drop me an email to byb@backyardbullion.com, and you can get the PayPal, friends and family, or banks transfer rate rather than having to pay with goods and services. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. I will be sharing more updates on these as I go through, as I've got all of the big blocks. So here's one of the blocks. This is what they'll look like eventually. So once I've got all the blocks done and made, I'll be sharing some more videos about all of these pieces. Otherwise, that's all I have to say. I hope you all have a fantastic week ahead. Thank you so much for watching, and please make sure that you like, share, comment, and subscribe for more.